Tonight, let us travel quietly into the American past. Not to a battlefield. Not to the office of a famous president. Not to a crowded city filled with noise and hurried footsteps. Instead, imagine a small town resting peacefully among rolling hills, fields, and tall trees, sometime in the middle of the 19th century. There is no highway nearby. There are no electric streetlights. There are no glowing windows from television screens. And there is certainly no sound of traffic rushing through the night. There is only the soft movement of the wind through the trees, the distant call of a bird, and perhaps the quiet creaking of a wooden porch beneath someone's footsteps. This is the kind of place that once existed all across the United States. A small American community where people lived close to the land, and where the rhythm of everyday life was measured less by minutes and more by sunrise, sunset, weather, harvests, and seasons. So, as you settle down and listen, imagine that you are standing at the edge of this little town just before dawn. The sky is still dark. Thin layer of mist rests over the fields. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls. Inside the homes, families are slowly beginning to wake. A woman reaches toward the fireplace and carefully adds another piece of wood to the fading embers. A small flame catches, and the kitchen begins to warm. There is nothing hurried about the morning. For most families, there is no reason to rush. The day will be long, but it will unfold in its own time. In the kitchen, breakfast might be simple. Perhaps there is cornmeal, bread, eggs, potatoes, or whatever the family has available from its own garden, farm, or nearby market. Coffee is becoming increasingly common in American households during this period, although tea remains familiar as well. A cast iron stove or fireplace provides the heat. Water has been carried from a well. There is no faucet to turn. No refrigerator hums quietly in the corner. No electric clock tells anyone that it is precisely 7:15 in the morning. Instead, people look outside. They listen. They know the season. And they understand the day. For a farmer, morning is often the most valuable part of the day. The horses need feeding. The animals need tending. Tools need to be carried into the fields. Fences must be checked. Crops need attention. Depending on the season, there may be corn, wheat, oats, vegetables, or other crops growing across the surrounding countryside. The work is physical, repetitive, and often tiring, but it is also deeply connected to the natural world. A farmer cannot simply decide that the weather is inconvenient. Rain cannot be postponed. A late frost cannot be ignored. A dry summer cannot be negotiated with. The land sets the schedule, and the people learn to follow it. As the sun rises above the trees, the little town begins to awaken. Smoke rises gently from chimneys. A horse moves slowly along a dirt road. A wagon passes between wooden buildings. Someone opens the door of a small store. Another person walks toward the blacksmith's shop. Children begin appearing outside their homes. The town is not large. Perhaps there are only a few dozen families. There may be a general store, a blacksmith, a church, a schoolhouse, a post office, and several homes arranged along an unpaved road. But to the people who live there, this little collection of buildings is an entire world. The general store is particularly important. It is not simply a place to buy things. It is also a place where information travels. Someone may arrive to purchase flour and leave knowing that a neighbor's daughter is getting married. Another person may come for lamp oil and learn that a shipment has arrived at a nearby river town. Someone else might stop for coffee, nails, fabric, or tools, and spend 20 minutes talking with the shopkeeper. There is no social media, no radio, no television, no instant message. News moves at the speed of horses, wagons, trains, boats, and human voices. That means conversation matters. People remember stories. They remember names. They remember who came through town last week and what they were carrying. They know which families have lived nearby for years, and they know which newcomers have recently arrived. In a world without modern communication, a person's reputation could travel surprisingly far. The blacksmith's shop is another important place. Inside, the air is warmer. A small forge glows. The blacksmith works with iron, shaping horseshoes, repairing tools, and fixing pieces of equipment that families depend upon. The sound of hammer striking metal carries across the road. Clang, pause, clang, pause. It is a repetitive sound, but in a small 19th century town, it is part of the natural music of the day. Nearby, children make their way toward the schoolhouse. The school may consist of only one room. Inside are wooden desks, a blackboard, maps, books, and perhaps a small stove for the winter months. Children of different ages may learn together. The youngest students are beginning with basic reading and writing. Older students may be studying arithmetic, geography, grammar, history, or other subjects, depending on the teacher and local school traditions. The teacher has an enormous responsibility. There may be no large staff, no specialized classrooms, no computer, no projector. One teacher may be responsible for almost everything, and yet, for many children, the schoolhouse represents something important. It is a doorway to a larger world through books, maps, and lessons. Children can imagine places they have never seen. They may learn about Washington, D.C., New York, the Mississippi River, the Great Lakes, or lands far beyond the United States. Some will grow up and never travel far from home. Others will eventually leave and see places their parents only knew from stories. But for now, they sit together in the little schoolhouse. Outside, the wind moves through the grass. Inside, a teacher reads aloud, and the morning continues. By midday, the town becomes warmer. Farmers pause for food. Workers rest briefly. Children may run outside. The horses stand quietly in the shade. A few people gather near the store. There is conversation, but it is rarely hurried. This is one of the most difficult things for a modern person to imagine. People in the 19th century certainly had worries. They worried about money. They worried about weather. They worried about illness. They worried about crops. They worried about children. They worried about war and politics and the future. Life was not easy, but many ordinary moments moved at a slower pace simply because technology had not yet accelerated them. If you wanted to speak to someone who lived 20 miles away, you could not simply call them. If you wanted to send a message, you needed a letter or perhaps a messenger. If you wanted to travel, you needed a horse, wagon, boat, or train. And if the weather turned bad, your plans might change completely. Distance had a different meaning. 20 miles was not merely 20 miles. It could be an entire day's journey, sometimes longer. Because of this, the local community mattered enormously. Neighbors were not simply people who lived nearby. They were often the people you depended upon. If a barn caught fire, people came running. If a family needed help bringing in a harvest, neighbors might gather. If someone became sick, food could be brought to the house. If a new family arrived, someone might help them repair a fence or find a place to stay. The community survived through countless small acts of cooperation. And perhaps this is why these forgotten towns are so fascinating today. They were not famous. They did not make national headlines. But they were filled with lives. Every house had its own stories. Every family had memories. Every road had footsteps. Every church had weddings and funerals. Every schoolhouse had children who once believed the future belonged to them. And above all of this was the quiet landscape. The hills, the fields, the creek, the trees, the changing sky. Imagine standing outside the town at sunset. The day's work is finished. A farmer leads a tired horse toward the barn. Smoke begins rising from chimneys once again. The windows of homes glow softly from candlelight or oil lamps. A family sits down to supper. Somewhere, a church bell may ring, and then darkness slowly settles over the town. There are no bright city lights in the distance. The night sky is enormous. Stars appear one by one. Perhaps the Milky Way stretches clearly across the darkness, much brighter than most people living in modern cities ever see. Inside one farmhouse, a child is listening to a parent read. In another home, someone is writing a letter. At the blacksmith's house, the fire has finally gone quiet. At the general store, the door is locked. The streets are empty. The town is sleeping, and for a while, nothing changes. But far away, beyond the hills, America itself is changing. New roads are being built. Factories are growing. Cities are expanding. Steam engines are becoming more powerful. Railroads are stretching across the country. The distance between places is beginning to shrink. And eventually, that changing world will reach this quiet little town. When it does, the people here will face a choice they cannot yet see coming. The railroad may bring opportunity. It may bring travelers, businesses, jobs, and new families. But it may also change the town in ways no one can predict. For now, however, the railroad is still somewhere beyond the horizon. Tonight, the town remains as it has always been. The creek continues moving quietly through the darkness. The trees sway gently in the night breeze. A horse shifts its weight inside a wooden barn. And somewhere beneath the stars, an entire community sleeps peacefully, unaware that the modern world is slowly moving toward them. And so, for just a little while longer, we will leave them there, resting beneath the quiet American sky, before the railroad, before the electric lights, before the automobiles, before the modern world arrived at their doorstep. The little town is still sleeping, and the night is still quiet. The little town had been quiet for many years, But quiet did not mean empty. Behind every wooden door lived a family with its own routines, hopes, worries, and memories. Some families had arrived only recently. Others had lived in the surrounding countryside for generations. Some had traveled west looking for farmland. Others had come because of marriage, work, or the promise of a new beginning. And although their lives were simple by modern standards, they were never without purpose. To understand this little American town, it helps to slow down and imagine one ordinary family living there. Picture a modest farmhouse standing just beyond the main road. It has wooden walls, a small porch, a chimney, and perhaps a vegetable garden behind the house. There may be chickens wandering near the fence, and a horse standing quietly beside a barn. Inside, the furniture is practical. A wooden table, a few chairs, a bed made from simple materials, chest for clothing, shelf holding a small collection of books. Nothing is extravagant, but everything has a purpose. The family begins each day early. For the adults, there is work waiting outside. For children, there are chores before school. Someone may collect eggs. Someone may carry water. Someone may bring wood inside. The smallest tasks are part of everyday life. And because there are no modern machines to perform them, children learn responsibility at a young age. The farm itself requires constant attention. Fence can break. An animal can become sick. A wheel can crack. A roof can leak. A field can become too dry. Sudden storm can change the entire day's plans. There is always something that needs to be done, yet the rhythm of the work is familiar. Morning becomes afternoon. Afternoon becomes evening. And the seasons determine what comes next. In spring, the fields begin to wake. Farmers prepare the soil. Seeds are planted. Gardens are cleared. Animals give birth. The countryside slowly changes from winter brown to fresh green. For families who depend on farming, spring brings hope. But it also brings uncertainty. A good harvest can support a family through the winter. A poor harvest can create months of difficulty. Rain is welcome, but too much rain can damage crops. Sunshine is necessary, but too much heat can dry the soil. The farmer has to watch the sky constantly. Summer arrives with longer days. The sun rises early and remains in the sky late into the evening. The fields become thick with crops. Children may spend more time outside. The creek becomes a place of simple recreation. On particularly warm afternoons, young people may walk along its banks, search for small fish, or simply sit beneath the shade of trees. There are no swimming pools, no amusement parks, no video games. Entertainment often comes from the world immediately around them. Stick can become a toy. Field can become a playground. Story can keep children awake for an entire evening. And sometimes, the best entertainment is simply being with other people. Community gatherings are important. A church picnic might bring families together. A harvest celebration can turn an ordinary afternoon into something memorable. Neighbors may share food, music, conversation, and stories. Someone might play a fiddle. Someone else might sing. Children run between adults. Older people sit together and talk about events from years before. For a few hours, the entire town feels connected. Church life also plays an important role. The little white church is more than a place for Sunday worship. It is one of the few buildings where nearly everyone may gather. People see neighbors they may not have spoken with during the week. Families sit together. Children learn lessons. Announcements are made. Weddings take place. Funerals are held. The church becomes a place where the most important moments of community life are remembered. And on quiet Sunday evenings, its bell may carry across the surrounding countryside. The sound travels over fields and through trees. Someone working near a barn can hear it. Someone walking along the creek can hear it. Someone sitting on a porch can hear it. The bell reminds everyone that they belong to the same small community. But life is not always peaceful. The 19th century is filled with uncertainty. News from distant parts of the country can bring excitement or fear. Political arguments reach even small towns. Newspapers carry stories about national events. And when America enters periods of conflict, the effects can reach families far from major cities. Young men may leave home. Parents may wait anxiously for letters. Wives may wonder when their husbands will return. Children may grow up remembering a father they barely knew. Even when major events happen hundreds of miles away, their consequences can arrive at the doorstep of a little town. A letter becomes especially important during such times. Imagine a family sitting around a table after supper. A letter has arrived. The envelope has traveled through several hands before reaching the local post office. Someone opens it carefully. Everyone becomes quiet. The letter might contain only a few pages, but those pages can hold enormous emotional weight. A son writing from far away. A brother describing a new place. A relative announcing a marriage. A friend sharing news about another family. In a world without instant communication, a letter is almost like a visitor. It brings another person's voice into the room. Sometimes families save those letters for decades. They become part of the family's history. The post office itself is therefore an important place. It may be attached to a store or located in a small separate building. The postmaster knows the names of local families. When mail arrives, people come to collect it. Sometimes there is disappointment. A person waits for a letter that does not come. Other times, there is excitement. A letter from someone far away can brighten an entire day. Newspapers are also valuable. Even a small newspaper can connect a town to the larger country. Readers learn about elections, markets, weather, business, wars, inventions, and events taking place in cities they may never visit. America is changing quickly. The Industrial Revolution is transforming parts of the country. Factories are growing. Manufacturing is increasing. New inventions are appearing. Cities are expanding. Transportation is improving. And the railroad is becoming one of the most important developments of all. But in our little town, the changes are still distant. The people can hear about them. They can read about them. But they have not yet experienced them directly. For now, the horse remains essential. A wagon carries supplies. Farmers use animals to work the fields. Travelers depend on roads that may become muddy after rain. A journey that would take only a short time by automobile today might require several hours. This makes travel a serious decision. People do not simply jump into a vehicle and drive somewhere for an afternoon. They plan. They prepare food. They check the weather. They inspect the wagon. They make sure the horse is ready. and they understand that the journey itself is part of the experience. A trip to another town can feel like an adventure. Along the road, travelers pass farms, forests, streams, and unfamiliar homes. They may stop at an inn. They may meet strangers. They may hear local stories. And eventually, after hours of travel, they arrive. This slower movement shapes people's understanding of distance. The world feels larger. A town 20 miles away can seem surprisingly distant. A city 100 miles away can feel almost unimaginable. And a place on the other side of the country may seem like another world. That is why the arrival of the railroad will eventually feel so extraordinary. It will change not only transportation, it will change people's idea of distance itself. Before that happens, however, the town continues its ordinary life. Autumn arrives. The fields begin to change color. Harvest season becomes one of the busiest times of the year. Families work long hours gathering crops. Neighbors help one another. The air becomes cooler. The days become shorter. Wood is collected for the coming winter. Food is stored. Clothing is prepared. Homes are made ready for cold weather. Then winter arrives. Snow may cover the roads. The creek becomes cold and dark. The trees lose their leaves. The little town becomes quieter. Inside the homes, families spend more time together. Fireplaces become the center of daily life. Someone may repair clothing. Someone may read. Someone may tell stories. Children may sit close to the fire. The darkness arrives early. And without electricity, the hours after sunset feel very different from our own. There is less artificial light, less noise, fewer distractions. Outside, the world can become almost completely dark. The stars return. The wind moves across the fields. Snow rests on wooden fences. And inside a farmhouse, a small flame continues burning. This is the rhythm that shapes the lives of the people in our town. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, year after year. The same roads, the same creek, the same church bell, the same fields. But while the town seems unchanged, the world beyond it is moving faster. Railroad companies are laying tracks across more parts of America. Engineers are finding ways to cross difficult terrain. Towns are appearing around railway stations. Businesses are moving toward transportation routes. Farmers are beginning to imagine new markets, and merchants are beginning to understand that a railroad can bring more than passengers. It can bring supplies. It can bring customers. It can bring opportunity. One evening, as the town settles into another quiet night, a traveler arrives at the general store. He has come from a larger community, several miles away. He brings news. A railroad company is surveying the region. The possibility of a new line is being discussed. At first, the information sounds almost too distant to matter. People listen. They ask questions. Someone wonders where the tracks might go. Another person wonders whether a station could be built nearby. A merchant begins imagining more customers. A farmer wonders whether crops could be shipped farther. Young people become curious about the powerful steam locomotives they have heard about. The conversation continues into the evening. Nobody knows what will happen. Nobody can see the future. But for the first time, the railroad is no longer simply something they read about in newspapers. It may be coming toward them, And that possibility quietly changes the way people look at their town. The familiar dirt road suddenly seems like it might become something more. The empty fields beyond the houses might one day contain tracks. The quiet horizon might one day carry the sound of a steam whistle. For now, however, nothing has changed. The church still stands. The general store is still open. The blacksmith still works beside his glowing forge. Children still attend the schoolhouse. Farmers still return home at sunset. And the creek continues moving peacefully beneath the trees. But something has begun. A new idea has entered the town, the railroad. And soon, the people who have spent their lives listening to horses, wagon wheels, church bells, and the wind will hear a sound they have never heard this close before. The distant whistle of a steam locomotive. And when that sound finally arrives, the quiet little town will begin to change forever.